Hello and welcome to Fairy and Flame. My name is Catherine Camsey.
And I'm Casey Hodges, and together we're building up the collective consciousness of our world one pod at a time. Today we have our friend Molly Gibson on the pod. I'm so excited to have her here.
Hello, Molly.
Thank you.
Molly
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah. Molly is local. She became friends with Catherine and I just a little over a year ago, and Kat's going to give a little bit of backstory about that. But before we get started, I want to give you a proper introduction. So I'm going to read it from my notes here. Molly Gibson. Molly is a spiritual healer, a trauma alchemist, and an intuitive. She's a licensed Reiki practitioner. She spent 2 years working as a pediatric death doula, where I'm sure you've supported and been through quite a bit of very sad moments with lots of families. We're going to get into that today. Molly works closely with plant medicines, both in her healing and service to others. She's helping people transmute inherited trauma and reconnect with their intuition and remember what unconditional love truly feels like. And I happen to be one of those people who has sat with Molly. She's a mother of 4 boys. She also happens to be a screenwriter, which is pretty cool. And she is the co-founder of Power to the Peaceful alongside our friend Angie Arkin, a platform. And for those of you guys who don't know what Power to the Peaceful is, we've talked about it before. It's a platform that's devoted to consciousness, healing, and collective awakening. And last but not least, Molly works in understanding that healing isn't something we impose on life, but something that emerges when we're willing to meet ourselves honestly.
I mean,
I know, it feels fancy.
Yeah, that is a big.
Have you ever had an introduction like that, Molly?
I have not.
It's true though, and it's so nice that you did all of that, because whenever we first met, you're so humble about all the things. Like, if I said to you, what do you do? You're a bit like, a little bit of this, a little bit nothing really. And it's like, then you find out all this stuff. I mean, I only found out the screenwriter. That was Casey was telling me last night, and I was like, what don't you do?
Yeah,
I mean,
back in the heyday.
Yeah, but still,
a million years ago.
Still, it's all the colours of you. You know, it's. I think it's amazing. Well, let's tell the story of how we met, because I love it, because it was a rainy Tuesday evening, and I rang Casey and I was like, right, let's go to. I want to go to this tea ceremony, and I'd never done a tea ceremony before. So we went in this room, and there was only, I think, how many other people? Like, it was just
there were 4 of us.
Yeah, there's 4. It was like
with our friend Erica.
And our friend Erica, I was friends with Erica before, and she'd asked, and I wanted to go and support her, and also, do the ceremony. And then we were leaving, and in my, Casey always wants to talk to everyone. I'm packing up, ready to get out of Dodge, and we were just getting ready, and Casey turns around to me and says, I'm going to go and speak to that lady with the little bob. I feel like it's important. I feel like, and it was like a big sort of thing that she said, and I was like, sure, okay. And then that's how we met, and then we became all instant best friends, and it's been, I mean, it's been a magical journey ever since. And of course, you introduced us to Angie and the guides, and what the guides had actually told you about us before, hadn't they?
They did, yes. And I stumbled into that tea ceremony last minute. And met you ladies, and the guides were very clear not to leave without talking to you both. And so, and this last year has felt like, I feel like I've known you guys a very long time.
Here we are.
It's only been a year. Here we are.
So Molly, before we get started, I have a question that I've never asked anyone before a pod, but this one felt compelling today. So before we dive into all the things that we're going to talk about, I want to know, what would you like people to feel after listening to this conversation? What do you feel like people should walk away with today after listening to this?
I hope people feel present and in a very honest way with themselves, and curious. I hope it leaves some curiosity and mystery. And
that's a brilliant word, because that's really embodies who you are, because you're like a curious box of tricks. There's all these different layers to you, and you seem, in my experience, when I first met you, you're so sort of unassuming and so sweet, but you're a powerhouse. You're this amazing, unbelievable powerhouse of all these things, and you've done jobs that I hadn't even heard of, which we'll go into. So it's really, don't ever not stand in your magnificence, because you are. I mean, it's very impressive. I feel very lucky to know you and all the gifts that you have. And I've also experienced healing from you as well, which was amazing. So
I feel like Molly's groundedness, and we'll get into this today, is part of what makes her such a talented healer too.
Yeah.
When you meet someone who's incredibly grounded, there's a safety to it.
Yes.
It's to give, I guess, an analogy, it's like it gives you, there's been a lot of ice around Nashville this week. It's kind of like holding on to something sturdy.
Yes.
Whenever things are feeling unsettled. So you carry that very grounded energy that I think allows people to hold on to you if they're going through some unsettling things.
Yeah. It's that mother energy.
Yeah.
And
Thank
very
you for those reflections.
unjudging as well.
Yeah.
That's a good, is that a word?
No, but that's a really good segue, I think, into the first part of this pod. Because your maternal lineage is part of your story. And I feel very ironic to how you are as an adult. Because most of us learn those, like I would say Kat and I both have learned our mothering skills from our mothers. We had that. We were lucky enough to have a lot of great maternal examples in our life with our mothers and our grandmothers. Not that yours weren't, but I think you had a bit more of a tumultuous or maybe, I don't know, it was different. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. And I did have an amazing mother. And I really have just overwhelming gratitude for who she was. And I feel very close to her now. She passed away in 2011, October of 2011. And and she was a good mom. She really parented. The tricky parts were that she parented through a lot of fear. And that had to do with her upbringing and the way she was raised and her grandmother and her grandmother's mother and so on. And so
what does it look like to parent through fear? Tell us explain a little bit what you mean by that.
I think not trusting yourself. And I was really raised not to trust myself. And my mom didn't trust herself. And so, when I would, any sort of self-expression, which my mom saw through the lens of fear, through her own trauma as a child. And, my grandmother did the same. And so when my mom saw my self-expression, saw me expressing myself in ways that were unfamiliar to her, that made her nervous, then, a quick, that's dangerous, don't do that, or that's a no, or a punishment.
Did it go to anger almost a little bit?
There would be a lot of anger, but a lot of be careful, watch out, what you're doing. It's sort of like, Satan's lurking behind every corner.
Oh,
and
wow.
so...
was it quite religious?
Very religious,
Okay.
very religious. And, now I know, I couldn't separate the church from my mom, and the way my mom parented. And later in life, my parents were pastors. And so it was so enmeshed to me that the Bible and Jesus and my mom and my dad and the way that they parented and the reflections that I saw, what I experienced in church, I had a lot of church trauma. And so I just could not separate any of it. I really had to walk away from all of it in order to find myself and listen to myself and learn to, hear my own voice and listen to my own intuition. It took a long time, a lot of unconditioning.
Did the Bible back up a lot of those fear thoughts and fear mongering that your mom would instill? Was that?
Yeah, I think that you could take anything and turn it into a weapon.
Yeah.
And so I think someone coming from a place of, security and love, someone that's not wasn't raised with the same, conditioning could look at the Bible and see it through a different lens.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say that the Bible is
I was raised differently.
Yes,
for
right.
example.
So some people,
yeah.
I have friends who are like, oh, the Bible says these, and it took me a long time to say, oh, I could see that. I do think the Bible has some things that are that I disagree with, obviously, but, slavery and so on. So, but, but in general, I think that a lot of what I thought of it was just so controlled by.
Was religion safe to her?
I think that it did give her, I feel like it made her think she was safe. If we follow these rules, if I did these things, I'm safe, and if I don't do these things, then I'm not safe. And so I think Jesus was this, was like a safety bubble around that she put around everything. And so I think that she interpreted the Bible through that lens of fear, and
Where did her fear come from? Where was that rooted from?
She was, she had a really difficult childhood and a difficult relationship with her mother. There were 8 kids, and she was, should I tell the story about my grandmother? I loved her very much. Tough woman, had a very hard life, and she had a very abusive father. And I don't remember how many kids at the moment, but I think there was like 12 or 14 kids in the family. And she, her father was very abusive, and she eventually got away from him and got married and had a little girl, had her first daughter. And then her husband was drafted for World War II. And so he said, I have to leave. I'm going to war. But you're going to live here with this woman, and she's renting a room to you, and I'll be back, And so he left. And I think 6 months later, the woman she was living with brought the newspaper in and said, is this your husband? And there was a wedding announcement. He was trying to marry this wealthy woman in Texas whose father owned all these car dealerships. And so he was never drafted. He never went to war. And so she, got divorced and then moved back to California with her mom. And, there was a lot of shame around being a divorced woman, having this little 2-year-old girl. And then out of the blue, her ex-husband showed back up and said, I made a mistake. I love you. I want to be with you. And they spent one night together. And then the next morning when she woke up, he left a note on her dresser and said, never mind, I can't do it. And
Never
left.
mind, I can't.
And she got pregnant with my mom at that night.
Wow.
So now she's, not only divorced with this baby, now she's pregnant, and everyone knows she's divorced already, and she has this pregnancy.
Oh, the shame.
Yeah, and so I think the shame and the self-hate that she felt about giving in that moment to this guy and trusting this man, I think she put a lot of that on my mom. And
especially if you're pregnant, all of that energy goes into we know, and it's so important how you are when you're pregnant, and the energy and the feelings that you have.
Yeah, and it was interesting because my mom didn't even know all of this story, and it was after I had my first son, my grandmother came, and we didn't know her that well. She didn't spend a lot of time with us until later in her life, and she was in town, and I remember she was going through some health crisis, and my mom, she was staying with my mom, and so I would take my little baby and sit in bed with her and nurse my baby and ask her stories, and I heard all of her stories, and she shared that with me. And so she told me it was really difficult. It was really hard for her to see my mom because my mom was this constant reminder. And it made a lot of sense when I heard that story, that was why my mom had so much self-hate and shame. And so there was a lot of psychological abuse that I think happened that, back in the day you wouldn't have called it that, but from where I'm sitting now, that's what it looked like. And then she had a really horrible trauma that happened to her, a sexual abuse that took place when she was a teenager. And so, when her mom found out, she said, I'm so sorry this happened to you, and take a shower, we're going to clean you up. And then from this point on, it never happened. We'll never talk about it again. So that made so much sense. And I didn't even know that full story.
So she never processed any of those feelings, as it wasn't allowed to talk about it.
It was just pushed down. And so I think all of that fear around the way she was raising us, especially her daughters, was informed by a lot of trauma and a lot of abuse. And so, and I didn't even know that whole story until she was on her deathbed, and she told my sister and I. And so,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
No,
I mean, no wonder that she felt those things.
Yeah.
For people who don't understand what ancestral trauma is, can you speak to that for a second? You've seen it, I know, in these plant medicine ceremonies, that it sticks with people.
Yeah.
Things that happen to your mother or your grandmother, your great-grandmother, those ancestral traumas have not dealt with, they can present, in a lot of generations after. So can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, and I think also on a side note, I think a lot of ancestral trauma comes from our lack of connection to our ancestors too.
Interesting.
We don't know their stories. We don't know their lineage. We don't know their craft work. We don't, we're separated and removed from that. And so when you are connected to your ancestors and you welcome them all to the table, the good, the bad, and the ugly, the ones you're ashamed of, the ones you're proud of, you welcome them all to the table. I think that's the beginning of ancestral healing, is allowing it all, and not shaming any part of it. And then, and I think that's a beautiful practice around the beginning of ancestral healing. And again, when you're in plant medicine, the those things can come up, and I think it lives in this stored in the body, and so it's passed down. And I knew that my great grandmother and her sister had a falling out and weren't close, and then I knew that my grandmother and her sister had a really rough falling out and weren't close, and then I knew that my mom and her sister had the same, and so it was really, and that same dynamic was really put on my sister and myself, and and I knew that from a young age that was happening, that it wasn't my story, but it was my mom's story about her sister.
And your grandmother's and your great
And my grandma. I didn't know my grandmother's until she told me as an adult, but as a little girl, I did know that what my mom assumed was this, she took her trauma from her sister and said, you guys are doing this too. And I didn't feel that way. I didn't feel that way about my sister. I didn't feel like I didn't love her or that I wanted to hurt her in any way. So it was confusing to me, and I knew that was my mom's story, and I didn't want it put on me, but I was very young and didn't have the tools to do anything about it. And so in my first plant medicine ceremony, I saw my sister, and I looked her in the eyes, and I just had this overwhelming love for and just appreciation for the beauty of who she was. And then I saw these vines kind of twist up around us in this darkness and just binding us into this contract that, was generational from my ancestors, from my grandmothers and their grandmothers. And so, and I sat up and I purged, which is a big part of ayahuasca, or can be. And I saw that leave, and I saw it just transmute, and I felt it leave my body, and powerful. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah. And that was, that's one way. There are many ways to work with ancestral trauma. That is, plant medicine is one very small way, but.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. It's like we forget that both those really negative things and really positive things that have happened need to be acknowledged. I think so much of us are conditioned to just take the negative and put it away in the closet, but they're not put away. They're still there.
Yeah. Well, then it is, like you say, it's just passed down. Like if your parents don't deal with stuff, then it's left to their children, and if I don't deal with stuff, then it's going to be left to my daughter. So
Correct,
I'm definitely seeing that play out as well. So it's interesting.
Yeah. And I don't think our parents. I don't know that my mom had the tools. I remember her telling me when she was dying, she was like, you and your sister are smarter than I ever was, and even at my age now. And so she said, there's so much more that you understand about healing that I've never understood.
Well, just think about this pod alone. The fact that we're talking about collective consciousness, and we're talking about plant medicine, and we're talking about ancestral trauma. These are things that our parents would have never ever acknowledged. My parents' plant medicine was some doobies in the 70s,
That's why this time that we're going into now is so important and so much change, because now we're so aware of it. It's different when you do something unconsciously, but if you're consciously not dealing with the stuff that's coming up in your life, and you're not learning the lessons, and you're consciously, I'm just going to ignore it and then hope that's okay. We know it's not going to be okay. We know that I know I have to do the work. You knew that you have to do the work. We're all here doing the work, and now, so it's interesting how we're sort of elevating now. Everybody is. We can't blame our parents for that.
I don't want to speak out of turn on this because I'm not an expert on ancestral trauma, but I do feel like too, if it's not dealt with, it can present in addiction. It can present in, mental health. There's so many ways that if it's not, I don't want to say exposed, but brought to light, acknowledged, loved, that then it can turn into things that aren't, it can get even worse. And so
there is no hiding it under the rug. That just isn't.
You can't.
It eventually, rears its head. So
yes.
So at what point, so you're raised in kind of this fearful, controlling. I don't want to say fearful, but there was some fear and control because it was all connected to your mom's and her own personal safety, right? So what point were you like, wait a minute, I do know stuff and I do trust myself and I can make decisions. Like, where did the shift happen in your life?
Yeah. And I do want to say on a side note with my mom that she was also one of the most compassionate humans I've ever known. And people that know her will say that, they called her the baby whisperer too. Like babies and animals just flocked to my mom. They loved her. She had such a beautiful presence as well. And, you know, I think because of that, you know, she did instill, you know, it's almost like side by side with the fear, she was also able to instill this mother power that I know that was deep in her. And so I think she had a lot of magic that she never could quite tap into or wasn't fully aware of. But
well, even with all the shame and the fear that she had, she kept you guys. You know, she didn't. She
and she
you know, in
protected us
those,
and-
you know, she protected you, and she wasn't an option to give you away or not have you. I mean, that in those days in itself was amazing.
Or the option of not protecting you.
Yeah,
completely. You know, and she fiercely loved us, you know, as she tried her best to do everything she could. Her whole life was about us, you know. And yeah, there was a lot of, you know, control and fear based on her, you know, the lens she was peering through, and, you know, the way she saw the world. But yeah, she was a lot of fun as well. And I think from a very young age, there were moments where my mom came to me for comfort, and I saw that there were, I knew there was a lot of fear, and that I felt like I had to protect her, I think, in a lot of times. And so that caused me to navigate my life in a way that I was looking for what was safe and what were the, you know, it caused me to be an avid reader and to grow and to look and to search outside of what my mom was saying. This is all true, because I thought, well, you're not doing so great, so it can't all be true. There's got to be something else. And then seeing that play out in church a lot too. My experience, there was a lot of trauma in church for me, and watching that. I remember looking around and seeing marriages in the church, and again, this is not all churches. This was my personal experience, and thinking, there's nothing that I'm seeing that I would want. Say that's what I want my life to look like, or that's what I want my marriage to look like, or my future. I just felt it was so intense, and so I would really, branched off on my own, in my own way, with trying to find avenues that felt safer. And but it was hard. I mean, I really was so ingrained. I didn't even know I could actually question any of the dogma that I was learning. I think I was, but I didn't know that I could outwardly question it, if that makes sense. I think I was raised so in such a bubble, if that makes sense.
So when did that switch?
During my divorce. So I married when I was, how old was I? 21 or 22, I think. And
where did you meet him? How did that, because you were so young to get married?
Yeah, I met my ex-husband, and we were just dating, and I wasn't planning on marrying him, and then I was actually planning on breaking up with him, and he knew it, and so he went to my house and spent some time with my family while I was out of town, because he knew that if my parents loved him, that they would be on his side, and it worked, and I came home from out of town, and I walk in my front door, and he's hanging out with my family, and I had no clue that I knew that I had introduced them, but shortly after that, my mom said, "I love this guy. This is your dad and I have prayed, and this is the man you're supposed to marry." And I believed them over everything in my body that said no.
Wow.
Everything in me that was like, this is not the right relationship. But I trusted them over that and said, okay. And I think we were married within 6 months.
Wow.
And so young.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of a setup. It was a setup marriage.
It was, yeah.
Wow.
And I knew, and I thought, and I knew it was wrong. I knew it was deep inside, but I was just too terrified to.
So when you say that switch came on a divorce, it was like here was a result of you not listening to your intuition, and you're like,
well,
okay.
and then when I went through my divorce, I mean, I had my son. I had my first son when I was 27, which was the best thing that ever happened to me. I instantly fell madly. I didn't think I wanted kids, and then I had my first son, and I was like, that is my boy. And it changed my whole life. It changed my whole life. There was before Noel, my oldest, and then after. And so, but we were in the middle of divorcing. So, and it was tough, and I watched, I knew that I was a good mother, and I knew that my instincts came on to protect my son, and I knew that I had to build a life that felt safe and beautiful for him. And I knew that my ex was not safe for me. he wasn't, and just to be clear, he wasn't physically dangerous in any way, but emotionally it wasn't a safe relationship for me. And so I knew that it wasn't, and we had a lot of problems. So when I decided to divorce, the church and my family took his side. And I felt those are the moments that I felt the most isolated and alone.
That's such a betrayal for your family to pick his side. That's so hurtful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it was. And at the same time, it forced me to go in and start listening to me. And so, I had therapists and counselors that took his side. And I eventually branched out and found a therapist that was not a Christian. And we walked through my whole marriage, and she said, "You've got to get out." And so, and it was the first person that really saw me and gave me permission to, listen to myself. And so,
your church was very fundamental, right?
Very, very fundamental. Yeah. And so, So anyway, so I left and started, I had to take, and it caused a rift with my mom and my family. There was a period of time where they didn't talk to me, and it was actually absolutely necessary for me. I didn't know, I was devastated, but it helped me listen to myself for the first time. And I couldn't separate my mom's voice and her fear and her worry, or my dad's or the church's from God. I couldn't, or from me, ultimately I couldn't hear from myself. And so when I took that time away, and I didn't take the time away when I had that time, I was forced into that time. I had moved to Georgia with Noel, and he was 3.5, almost 4. And I was living on my own as a single mom. And that was when I started to just, look and pay attention and try and, assess where am I, what am I doing, what's happening, and what do I want for my life? This was not what I expected, So.
Had you worked with plant medicine before then, or done any kind? No.
In fact, I didn't know anything outside of the church at that point. I was still very much Christian. I would have called myself very Christian at the time. And so I didn't have anything outside of that box.
No spirituality.
No spirituality. Yeah. Anything outside of that box, I was raised to believe was of the devil.
Wrong.
So it was.
So now it's like you're not. There's nothing for you to hold on to.
Mm-mm. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's when was your first plant medicine? Around about that time, 2015. Oh, okay.
So it's
quite a ways afterwards. Yeah.
So let's walk us up to, I want to get to the part where you decided that you were going to go into death doula, pediatric death doula. And I just want to hear the evolution of that. Where did you decide now that you've gone from being kind of in this hurt spot to being a healer?
Well, plant medicine came first, and that sort of informed my decision to go into death doula work. And I think it was also partially I really wanted to look at my fear around death. I think, the fear around death came in, especially when I was questioning my relationship to heaven and God and all the things. And if I branch out, if I have a different belief system, is there anything to catch me? Am I going to hell? So, and I did a lot of work around that with plant medicine and just in my own daily practice. And so when I heard about death doula work, it was frightening to me. And so I thought maybe that's what I need to look at,
Oh, so you were attracted to the thing that scared you the most.
Yeah. And
which is so ironic because of what you just described growing up,
Yeah.
And how brave, you just hit it straight on. You were like, this is my first hurdle.
Yeah. And I did. I jumped just straight into it, and I was really afraid of it. And so the schooling was incredible. They have you do a lot of practices around death and looking at it, and it just they pull out everything so that you can't hide from it, because you can't help anybody if you're having a process while someone's dying.
Right. Yeah.
So it's really so it's beautiful training, and then
what does the training look like? Just is it schooling? It
depends on where you go. I went to the Conscious Dying Institute, and so
where is that?
They had just gone on Zoom because I think they're based out of Colorado, but the course was in Colorado, but then they moved it online because of COVID.
Okay.
So
I mean, I hadn't even heard of a death doula until I met you.
Yeah,
I didn't
let
know.
alone pediatric.
Oh, I mean,
Yeah.
I've never been scared of death, but there's no part of me that would be able to do that. It's such an amazing thing that you do. I mean, what does that if you say death doula, what does that do? How does it look like? What do you do? You go
Well, it's a
sit with the
conversation
person?
stopper at parties. It's like you're like,
I mean, yeah.
especially if you say pediatric death doula.
Wow, but
Yeah.
wow.
And it's interesting because usually the response that I get, it's funny. I hear this most. They'll say, "What do you do?" And I've said, I'm a death doula, and they say, "Oh, well, I'm not afraid to die," and then they walk away.
Yeah,
Don't worry, I'm not here to
Which
kill
is
you.
very telling. It's a very interesting response to have.
I think I just said that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people really aren't. Some people really have a different relationship, I think, to death.
Well, I think most of us have heard of doula. I had a doula. You had a doula.
Yeah,
whenever
birth
doulas,
doula.
whenever our children were born. But I never, I don't really know what it was to have one in death. Can you explain to us, first of all, I guess, what it is, the definition?
Yeah, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like a birth doula, but it's at the other side of that. So it's helping people transition out of life and into death.
What you're talking to them, you're talking about things.
It depends. Some people are not present, and you're helping families that are dealing with it. Sometimes there's a lot of fighting, and you're going in and helping the family understand what's happening, and trying to work with whatever it is that's happening in the room.
Right.
It's like expedited healing almost.
Well,
if you've put off all this healing to the very end, and you're like, oh shit, I better hurry up and heal some stuff. Or what are people asking for? Are they asking for?
I think a lot of them are asking for someone to normalize what's happening.
So is it really, a death doula is really as much as for the family as for the person that's dying? Mm-hmm. So
yeah, and sometimes the person who's dying is not coherent. You can't speak with them, and sometimes so you're working with the family if you're called in, and sometimes you are working with the person who's dying and their fear. Or I think ultimately, I mean, as a doula, I can't do it for them.
Yeah,
I have never died, so I can't tell you how to do it. And I think that we, in this culture, we're so far removed from death. We have a very death-phobic culture, and we tuck it away. It's like it's tucked in the bottom of hospitals and in these sad hospice centers, and we put the things that we don't want to look at far away from us. And that is death has become that. So we don't have it's culture work. Death is not supposed to happen behind closed doors. It's supposed to happen.
Yeah, it's just a transition into the next part of
and
that
it
journey.
Requires your active engagement. Death is something that you actively have to participate in, but we are watching an entire generation of people that are not actively dying. They're just being obliterated. They're just like tapping out. Like they're not present for their death, and that comes. I mean, that's a whole rabbit hole of.
Let's talk about that. What does that mean to not be present for your death?
Well, it comes from. We have an inability, I think, if I'm trying to back up to where, it starts from this, inability to sit with suffering or to sit with grief. We don't understand what we don't have a relationship, or we're not grief literate, we're grievance literate. We can build a pile of our grievances, and then grievances are what your rights are. This is an injustice, fight cancer, fight death, right? But,
right.
Interesting.
Yeah, where grief is, it takes capacity. Grief is sitting with the absolute truth of what's happening in the moment. And that's with the pediatric death doula work, that's the biggest piece, is going in and saying what's happening in this now moment, and being willing to be fully present with what's happening in the moment, and not trying, a child that's dying does not need you to give them platitudes and tell the family, let's tie this up with a bow at the end. It's just being able to be with the absolute raw, honest moment of what's happening. You know, this child is going to die, and not lying to the children, And so I think that's the biggest piece, is that parents want to obviously protect their children, but in that protecting, we're hiding it again.
And that just creates fear.
And it creates this cycle of tucking it away and hiding it away, and not bringing it out to the community. And with tribes it's different. In tribal communities it's different. And so I think that's part of the fear of death, is that because we're afraid of death and because we hide it away, we disconnect from it completely. which goes back to the ancestral work. We don't know who our ancestors are, right? And so we're disconnected from that. And so when we're facing our own death, we're saying, who's going to remember me on the other side? We don't even know our own ancestors, you know? And so it's this full circle moment of like, how do you stay present with what is and not hide it, you know, like not try to let it be as messy as it needs to be. Yeah. And just sitting with the honesty of it.
When my mum was in the hospice, that was something I was so annoyed because she'd asked, my mum had a brain tumour, so she reverted to sort of being a 5-year-old, which actually was a blessing. But she'd asked, it was like dealing with a child, she'd asked the nurse if she was going to die. And the nurse had said yes, you know, had spoken to her because she was actually an adult. And I was so upset about it, you know. And I was like, well, you know, because I'd kept talking about, you know, well, oh, you'll be fine, and this is like a respite, and then you'll come to America. But it sort of, that opened up a whole new world because then my mum was able to talk about it. I think my mum wanted to talk about it because you would have lucid moments with her. And soon after that, I went in one day because she was, you know, she didn't always remember who my daughter was, or there was lots of childish conversations that we had about silly things. And then one day she walked in and it was as if she had no brain tumour. It was as if my mum, and it lasted for about 5 minutes, and she planned her whole funeral. And I was like, but I was sort of sat behind and I just hit record, and she was able, she said, this is what I want, this is what I want it exactly like this, and she planned the whole thing. And that was the best gift, because my brother and my sisters, we were all beginning to like argue about it, because you don't you know, you don't want to you know, talk about those things. I didn't want to know if she wanted to be cremated or buried, or you know, because then it makes it real. But that was, the nurse actually gave us a gift because it gave her permission to talk to me about it. And it was her, and then she was gone again. Then we were talking about custard or something, you know. But what a gift, because there was no arguments about it. I was like, here is this what she wanted. This is the song she wants. This is the poem she wants. These are the flowers she wants. This is the casket fairy house, as I called it, that she wanted. So that makes you. That makes, I just really related to that.
Yeah, it's powerful when the person can be present with what's happening and see it. And my mom, you know, watching my mom die, she was in absolute denial of dying. And, they told her she had this extreme case of interstitial lung disease, never smoked, never, I mean, my mom was like such a health nut, you know, and so the doctor said, you know, maximum 3 months. And he said, and it's not like cancer where you're really watching that, you're seeing, okay, we're at the end. It's like walking off a cliff. She'll be chatting with you and then boom, it's going to happen suddenly. You know, feel sudden, but you're going to know it's in 3 months. And my mom was in such denial about the death. She told the doctors, you can tell my kids anything they want to know, but don't tell me anything. I don't want to know anything about what's happening with me. And so, and I think because of that, you know, I mean, when she did die, it was a shock. I felt like blindsided. I'm like, nobody told me, even though they had told me multiple times. But I think that, you know, her staying completely disconnected from it also and staying in denial left us in denial. And so, and so I think what a difference it would have made to be able to have those raw conversations about where she was at, what she was feeling, what she was experiencing.
Yeah, and also get some peace as well, because again, afterwards, my mum asked to see if she wanted a priest to come in, and we took her to the church, and we did a lot of, and then my sister brought in like a, you know, there was singing, and it was, you know, we talked about Angel, you know, we were able to talk about, and then we started to talk, we got a blanket made with her mum and dad on, because she, you know, really missed her mum and dad, so... Yeah, it was. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it was.
And that's that. You know, I don't see that often. You know, and granted, I only did death doula work for about 2 years, and I just stopped this last summer. So, well, about 2.5 years. But I saw a lot more difficult ones than I saw.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
Yeah.
What is that fine line between fighting death, but then also being free to die? Where is that? I mean, that you make such a good point. We put so much fight and aggression behind not dying.
Yeah.
Then where does that freedom? Because that does feel better to me, to have the freedom to die.
Yeah.
Where does that fit in, or how does that fit into that work?
I think that, like, on a, you know, if people can begin to like befriend death now, you know, start looking at at your death now, it really informs the way you live.
Interesting. And
you start to build a relationship with death, you know. You're not trying to domesticate death. Right. It's wild, you know, but you're going into looking at it and saying this is going to happen for sure. And so, and then, you know, spending time at those shores of your life and watching where you throw a pebble and it creates the ripples. Like, where are those ripples? What have I affected? What have I created? If I died at this moment, if I was dying in 1 month, and really looking at your life, and spending time sort of courting death, and stepping in and chatting with it every now and again, and knowing that it's an inevitability. Is that a word? Inevitability.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Then you're not sticking it in those dark corners. So it's not this, when it comes at you, you're not going to fight it. You're going to say, this is what's happening. And, I'm not saying that like you should do no interventions for, at all. That's up to each individual person. But a lot of times though, I'll say that I've seen and witnessed this, 99% of the time is that, we people that I'm visiting have traded their hour of death for this long drawn out year of death or longer, and so everybody wants their hour of death. Like, I'll be fine, and then I'm just going to die when I have to die. But the more you trade in and you say, I'm going to avoid it here, and you're fighting, a lot of times your end of life, that's where you can't participate in your death, because at that point you've suffered so much that you're just on so many medications or so many things that you're tapping out completely from there's no end of life. There's no hour of death. There's just many, many hours of suffering. And
we had to do it with my mum, with her, do we give her chemotherapy? And I was like, why? There's just, let her have that time. It will be shorter, but it will be more magical. She's not going to be in pain. She's not going to be sick. She's not going to be. And that was, again, I suppose that's what a death doula, that was quite difficult to navigate, because I'm one of 4. But I'm so glad that she didn't, because, we had that time with her at the end without her being sick. She was already sick. So, wow, this is... it's a very interesting conversation. It is. It's so interesting, because it's stuff that you don't talk about.
We don't talk about it.
Even just you saying, what about you are going to die, so think about it. So it makes now more important and more pressing and more, and you said about the ripples. I was like, well, I definitely need to leave a few more ripples yet.
Yeah.
So I actually love that, and it doesn't have to be scary, because it's just another part. I think dying is just another part of living.
When I first had my kids, I had a really unhealthy relationship with death. I was really scared of death. I hadn't found my way back into my spirituality. I wasn't going to church at the time, which I'm lucky enough to not have church trauma. And so I was kind of floating. I had nothing to hold on to. So it was very fearful to me. I was able to get a grasp on that when I started rediscovering my spirituality. And then I got a better grasp on it when I started working with plant medicine. And for any of you who've done plant medicine, the death portal is something that's talked about quite a bit. And is quite common. And I have now gone through, I would say, twice, because I've done plant medicine twice, and I've had it both times, which is very perfect for who I am, because it knew that's what I needed, right?
What's the death portal? I don't know what that is.
Molly, I'm gonna let Molly answer.
Sorry, yes, I forgot that we were doing a podcast. We're having tea.
Molly's done a lot more plant medicine journeys than I have, so I'll let Molly talk a little bit about the death portal, because I think it's a good transition from your work as a death doula, and then you are going through death with people in ceremony a lot.
Yes, this is true. Yeah,
you are a plant medicine doula, death doula.
I think death portal, or what else do they call it? It's sort of like it's the ego death. It's sort of when your ego that kind of keeps everything together. Your ego, serves you quite well. That's why you get up and brush your teeth in the morning and you get to work. And so when all of those constructs fall away, and they call that the death portal. So when everything that all of your control basically goes, and so you're just left as the essence of you, and going through it can feel frightening, because you're trying to wait.
Yeah. So. But really, it's just your ego death.
Yeah.
Versus an actual, I'm envisioning myself jumping off a cliff. Like, that's not how it feels at all. But it has helped me going through it now to be able to separate myself from what it is that my ego is holding on to in this human body, versus what it is that I will be transitioning into when my soul moves into that next phase. So, so I think let's talk a little bit about plant medicine. and how you found your way into ayahuasca, which I think now is one of your biggest plant allies.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Yeah. It was, my mom had passed away in 2011. I had my last son in 2015. And we had a lot of family trauma on my husband's side and my side. And then my mom passing away, and just a lot of it was kind of nonstop trauma for quite a few years. And I was going to therapy. I had an amazing therapist, and I just to this day love her and have so much gratitude for her. And I think she kind of did some prep work for me, even though we never talked about plant medicine. I didn't even know what it was, but at the time. But it also wasn't. I would just start sobbing and couldn't stop crying, and I was not okay. I couldn't get a grip on my emotional state. I felt adrift. I felt lost. I felt confused. I felt heartbroken and afraid. I felt terrified, and I stumbled upon an article from Johns Hopkins about mushrooms. About a mushroom ceremony. And so I started reading about it, and then shortly after that, I don't remember how much longer, maybe it had been almost a year later when I read, I had read Michael Pollan's book, but that came later, before I did my first mushroom trip first. And so I read about mushrooms, and I had a friend who was a psychologist at, she was like the head of the psychology department at this hospital. And so she had done all these studies on it as well. And so I talked to her for a long time, and she said, you don't qualify to come for us to do a ceremony with you. Or not, so they didn't call it a ceremony, but you don't qualify for a session. You have to have like war trauma, or you have to be facing end of life. But she's like, I can give you all. Those are the only two groups that were being allowed at the time for these like
testing
legal sessions. And so she said, but I can give you all the details on how you can do this yourself. And I said, okay. And she said, but I can't give you the mushrooms either. And I said, okay. So I had a friend that I knew like played around with mushrooms. I had smoked weed a handful of times. That was the extent of my experience with what I consider drugs. And so I called my friend and said, where do you get your mushrooms? And he said, I get it from this amazing guy who grows them, and he's a naturopath. And so I thought, perfect, he's not like a weirdo. And so I said, I want to meet with him and talk to him. And so after a lot of like pushing, eventually this guy decided he would meet with me. He was terrified. I think he was positive I was an undercover police officer. And so we talked for a long time. We talked about, he was really, luckily he knew a lot about it, and really kind, spiritual human. And so bought mushrooms from him and came home, and my husband was like, this is crazy. And I said, I'm going to do 6 grams. Apparently that's a hero's dose. And so I just need you to, we got, my family took I don't even know if I don't think I probably told my siblings what I was doing, but they watched my kids for me. And I gave my husband this list that I had like pulled together from, reading various websites. And I was like, okay, so if I panic, say this. Do not go off script. So only if I freak out, say this.
So you just did it at home?
By myself.
Oh my God.
And so I said, I had like a playlist and an eye mask and all the things that I thought I had to have ready. And then I said,
And Treve had his script.
Yeah. And I was like, if I freak out, say this. If this happens,
you're not
do this.
freaking out.
Yeah. Everything is okay.
Like it was bringing curiosity. So if
mushrooms are good.
I'm like freaking out and I say, I'm stuck in a dark room, then say, what does the dark room represent? Like, ask the curiosity. And he's like,
I want to see that.
Babe, this is crazy. I'm like, I know, but I am. This is how desperate I am. And so,
what were you desperate for?
I was desperate to feel safe again, and to feel like I could. I felt like I was living in a constant state of trauma, a constant state of flight or flight. And I knew, I'd been going to therapy for a while, and the talk therapy was helping me to a degree, but I just hit this point where I'm like, it's not doing it anymore. I already know what she's going to tell me before I walk in, and it's not working. So
you were maxed out.
I'm maxed out, yeah, and I don't want to talk about it anymore either. I just want this. I need this. I need to know where do I offload all of this? How do I move this trauma out of my body? And so yeah, so I took 6 grams of mushrooms and I lay down. And then all of a sudden, boof, it came on so strong. And it was very dark and there was spiders and it was terrifying. And I cried out in my mind, like, why can't this work for me? Why can't one thing work? Why can't I just do something and it works out? You know, why can't I do these mushrooms and they actually help me? Why does it have to go straight to terror, you know? And this cute little mushroom with like the, you know, the red and the white dots, like grew up into this giant, terrifying, dark mushroom and like loomed over me. And it was like, you think you can just use me to get what you want? And I was like, I'm sorry. And then it went boom, back into this cute little mushroom. And it said, that's what you think you deserve. That's not what we're here to do. And I said, okay. And I said to my husband, you can go out. I got this. And he goes, oh, okay. So he went out.
Thank goodness.
And then I just burst into tears. And I think I grieved and sobbed for, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours straight. And it was just moving energy. And I just moved and offloaded just deep packed in energy of just like all this grief. And it came up and I literally felt like I was floating afterwards. I thought this was magic. And it also, you know, Jesus popped in at one point and I was like, dude, I got some beef with you. He was like, let's talk about it. And it was really beautiful. I mean, it was beautiful. Because I think I was bored. I was like, I don't think I believe in anything. I threw the baby out with the bathwater as far as spirituality. I didn't have context for spirituality. I didn't know anything outside of religion, and I just threw it all away. And so in that moment, I was tapping into something old and ancient and true and wise that and I was remembering. And I thought, oh, this is something that I remember, but I like, what's happening?
Yeah.
What does this mean? And so
when you get messaging during plant medicine, it's a full body knowing. It's like I gave this analogy in a previous pod. It's kind of like when you close your eyes and you bite into an apple and you're like, that is 100% an apple. Mm-hmm. The knowledge that you get from medicine in a plant journey is so true. It's like the truth.
Yeah.
It is.
It's like cellular.
It is. Yeah. It's embodying something to your core that when you get out of that place and you talk to someone and they try to convince you otherwise, you're like, nope, that's not true. Like, you know what I mean? Okay. I mean, what is truth? But it's your truth, right? Mm-hmm. So, wow, that's pretty wild. Yeah. Psilocybin was my first plant medicine too. Mm-hmm. Very different journey, but
the niños.
Yeah. But also I did get a talking to on my plant medicine journey for a little bit of the same kind of, I got that you need to like check yourself in the moment, you know, that plant medicine does
was it a big scary mushroom?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't to that, but plant medicine can do that to you.
Yeah, I think it was showing me that I believed I deserved, you know, now you've done it. You know what I mean? You've done drugs, you know? And then the mushrooms were like, we're actually not that. That's what you think you deserve, you know? And so, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Beautiful. And then obviously, you know, you went on to do, I mean, you've done a few journeys.
Yeah, I did. I worked with mushrooms for about a year straight, just like probably every 6 weeks.
Was it the same? Was it a different experience every time?
Every single time.
A different lesson every single time.
And I was really healing. I mean, I was looking at all of my relationships in my life and looking at trauma, looking at my mom and my sisters and my sister-in-laws and my brothers and my brother-in-laws, my in-laws, you know, and a lot of looking at myself. And so there was so many relationships that I needed to heal on the inside, you know.
When was your first ayahuasca ceremony?
So that was in 2016. Yeah, I think it was, I want to say, summer, early fall of 2016, around then.
And how different is, obviously I've never done anything like this. What's the difference between mushrooms?
Not the same.
What's the experience and the different, what do you get out of both of them that's different?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so it's sort of their, the essence of who they are. I mean, they call the mushrooms in South America the niños. They say they aren't from this planet, and they do feel that way. I mean, they feel like they're from another planet for sure, yeah. And ayahuasca is a vine, like rooted in the jungle. It's a jungle vine, rooted into this earth. And the color of the grandmother. And so it's a different energy. You're working with it. It's the difference between working with maybe intergalactic, little healers versus this vine grandmother energy from the jungle,
Yeah.
Yeah. So they have different personality and a different way of working with the body and a different way of illuminating, the shadows. And ayahuasca works with the shadows, and she illuminates, what's already there. So it's, yeah.
Do you prefer one to the other, or?
Yes, I do prefer ayahuasca for sure. That's the first time I had ayahuasca. I thought I had a deep remembering. I was like, I know this medicine, and I was terrified of it, and I loved it at the same moment. I loved the essence of who she is, and the way she reveals herself, and the way she heals, and the way she illuminates and speaks. There was something. Yeah, one is not better than the other. That's just the one that I gravitated towards.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, I think they're both very powerful and beautiful teachers.
My first ceremony, I sat with you. You were such a support system. You did not serve ayahuasca to me. I want to be clear.
Yes,
no,
thank you.
we were just in ceremony together, and Molly was. You were. I couldn't have done it without you. You really stepped into your Molly mother role, and it felt so comforting and safe. And now, hearing your story is a little ironic that you carry so much groundedness and safety in your presence, considering maybe what you didn't feel as a child. So I feel like I can say for you, the work is working.
Thank you.
Yeah. So from here on out, like as you have 4 boys. You're in the thick of motherhood with activities and sports and school and all the things. What does your adulthood healing look like now? What is it? You've gone through a lot to heal some of the other things, but now what is your goal? Why continue with plant medicine, and why continue to heal?
I think healing. And, life is just happening in real time. And I think that the way I'm working with my life at this moment is to be as present as possible in the moment. And, I don't return to plant medicine over and over again because I feel like I just need to keep digging and keep healing. And I think in this country, it's like, get in there and keep healing, and we can just, zap out on, retreats and this and that. And so it's not like there's not an end goal of like, now we're healed. You know what I mean? It's an ongoing process. And also I think the main reason I go back and I work with this medicine in the way that I do is because it's my prayer. It's the way I like to pray. And when I can get in there and pray in the way that this medicine allows me to do. And I can do it all the time. I don't have to just do it in plant medicine. I'm lucky enough to be in a situation where I feel called to continue to work with it, and I feel overwhelmingly blessed and filled with gratitude that it's available at this point, and I don't take it for granted ever. And it's a beautiful way to go and support others who are, when I started, I was such a mess, and I really needed a soft place to land and some place to just fall apart and be like, this is where I'm at, and it's awful, and I don't know how to work through it, and this trauma is coming up, and have people that could keep the boat steady and say, here's a safe container, knock yourself out, and hold beautiful, beautiful, compassionate, powerful, wide space, clean space for me to do that. And so it's an honor to get to participate in that in even a small way for others, and just to help hold a safe space as well. And to continue to go and to look around the room and think, this is my prayer, that we continue to heal, because the more that we look and, as within, so without. So the more that we go within and heal within, we can reflect healing and beauty and safety and all the things we want for this earth, And so, a lot of the chaos that we're seeing is a direct result of the chaos within. So the more that we, accept what is, and look in the mirror and say, oh, that's what this is. And that's a lot of like the standing at the edge of the shoreline and looking at your life, looking at death, looking at what is in this exact moment, you know, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and loving all of it.
Yeah.
You know, because it all brought you
unconditional love.
Unconditional love,
Yeah.
and accepting the fact that, you know, looking at my mom and thinking there was so much fear, and even the church with the church trauma. I mean, it's all perfect. It all needed to happen in order for me to be where I mean, I love my life. I wouldn't change anything. I love every bit of it. And I love where I came from. I love my roots. You know, it was messy and crazy and sad and hard. And there was a lot of trauma and crazy shit happened. But it's also like, I look back and I could see that I came here to do it, you know, and I navigated it. We're all doing the same thing. We're all navigating our lives in these beautiful, ugly, messy,
You get,
profound
all
ways.
these choices, and what choice are you going to make? What timeline? We talk about timelines. What timeline are you going to jump into, and what lessons are you going to overcome? What are you going to learn? What's you know, how are you going to get through to the end of that? So,
And it's not boring, that's for sure.
Yes, I think that's the life I'm living, not the not boring one.
Yes.
But it's funny because, you know, I'm so, it just doesn't call me. People say it calls me. It's not calling me at all. But when you were, you know, we always talk about this, Casey and I, about how, you know, you go through things, and I feel like I'm living it out in real time, but I feel like you're my plant medicine. Like that conversation is like no, actually, this is I'm going to be this mushroom, and then we're going to do it like this. And so it's funny that that's the way that you were describing that. I was like, that's why I don't need plant medicine. I've got Casey to sort me out.
I'm the plant. Well, I don't want this conversation to get away from us without talking about power to the peaceful. So we're going to take a little bit of a right-hand turn, separate from what we've been talking about, and because that's what you're doing right now professionally. You're co-founder of Power to the Peaceful. It's an online community led by Miss Angie Arkin and her Galactic Council. So give us a little bit of background into that. I want to make sure that gets its exposure today on the pod. And I'm a member of Power of the Peaceful. Catherine's a member of Power of the Peaceful. I got it from my stepmom for Christmas. She's loving it right now. It makes a great gift. So, and it's another spiritual tool in my toolbox.
It is. Yeah, it's beautiful. Yeah. So Angie Arkin is a dear, dear, dear friend of mine. I love her so much. And her beautiful wife, Abby, they're my closest friends. I just love them. And they, Angie, she's an intuitive psychic, and so she's been doing beautiful, incredible intuitive psychic work for years and years and years. And so she would do one-on-one sessions with people, and she's powerful. I mean, and funny thing is, I didn't believe in any of that at all. And so when I met her and experienced, you know, her gifts and her magic and her just, you know, all of the beauty of who she is, I was, I had no idea. And so the messages that she would give were so profound and so amazing. And so we had been talking about it for a while. Like, what would it be like? You know, where do you get the messages from? And she would say, oh, my guides, they're galactic, they're in space, they're my, you know, this council of beings, and like angel beings, or, you know. And she said, they tell me things, and then I just tell you what I hear. And so I asked her what she thought it would be like if she were to channel them directly, if she were to maybe move out of the way, could she let them just speak through her? And so a year ago in January, she and I were sitting together, and so for the first time, she said, "Yeah, let me give it a go and see what happens." And boom, you know, she started channeling, and it was I don't even know, I don't know how to, ineffable.
Yeah.
Yeah, powerful, beautiful, incredible, and the messages were so relevant to this time and important for this time, and so we developed something. You know, the private sessions are a little more expensive, and so we were like, I wonder if there's a way to create something where people could access this information, you know, in a way that's affordable and helpful, and so we created a subscription-based program where you can sign up, and you get a channel every month that's relevant to that particular month. And sometimes we have astrology mixed in with what's going on or whatever's happening with the times or whatever, mainly what the guides really want you to know. And then there's a beautiful meditation that's curated for that specific month too, that's helpful with the times that we're in. And then at the end of the month, we do a live Q&A, and so people can get on and talk directly to them and ask their questions and connect connect with us. So
I love it. I love the Q&A. There was just one
It's
I was
really
with you
fun.
this week when we did it. Yeah, it's fun. It's interesting. And there's always, I find, a little bit of a thread that runs between the questions, and the answers are always so, you learn something from everybody's question, even if it's something personal, something generic. It's brilliant. I mean, obviously we love Angie. We've both worked with her a lot, so she's so amazing, and so she's really, she's personally helped me. I've done this stuff since I was 16. I've been into everything, try every reading, every tarot, every spiritual thing I've arrived at, and she really she took something and shifted it within an hour.
Yeah.
Like some stuff that I'd been working on for like 20 years, and she just reframed it and was like, well, that's because of this, and and I was like, oh, it's just 20 years that I wasted just thinking about that.
Yeah.
So she's really unbelievable, and I've a lot of my friends in London have gone. I'm like, you just have to see Angie.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what to tell you. If they ring me with a problem, I'm like, get to see Angie.
I say the same thing. You have to experience it to believe it.
Yeah.
And they ring me and they're like, oh, this is insane.
But how wonderful now that you have something that everybody can afford and be a part of. And it also reinforces the idea that we are a collective consciousness. The councils express that. And so part of that is being in community together.
Yes.
So
Yeah, beautiful.
That's a great idea to gift it. I think I might do that for my
Valentine's
sister.
Day is coming up, folks.
Perfect gift.
Well, Molly, thank you so much for being with us today. It was a beautiful conversation, and I'm just wowed by all of the work you have done, and you took it upon yourself. I think that's probably the most impressive part of the whole thing. I've always needed help and helpers and facilitators and things like that, but you're like the person that went to the gym and just started grabbing weights and figuring it out.
Well, I did have a lot of help along the way.
Yeah.
A lot of support with
But you still did it yourself. You went in a room and you did it yourself. Yeah. I would not do that. I'm not brave.
I think we all are. I mean, you are. I've seen you do it. I mean, we're all doing the work, which is why we're able to sit here and do this too. So
just in different ways.
I give you a lot of credit. You've done
thank
both
you.
of you. Yeah, showing up.
Well, Molly, you're on Instagram at Molly Moonwalks. And then if anyone's interested in joining Power to the Peaceful, you can go to angiearkin.com and sign up there. And thank you again so much for your time today.
This was so fun.
Yeah, thank you so
we
much.
love you.
Love you too.
We love you so much. And just before just one thing, because we didn't touch on it, but the screenplay, I feel like there's a movie.
Oh, yeah.
With Molly.
Oh my god.
We just have to say it. You heard it here
You're
first.
putting it on camera.
Just
There's
putting it
no
on
video.
camera, but just producer over here.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, it's so interesting, the journey that you've been on. So anyway, that's another pod.
That's going to be the pod after the movie comes out.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Thank you, Molly.
I love you guys. Thank
Love
you
you,
so
Molly.
much.
Molly
Love you too.
Moonwalks.